Great values in firearms, outdoors, hunting, tactical arena. Inflation's up. Gas is up. Housing market is high. Right? How can I help you save some money on some of this kind of stuff of lessons I've learned over the years? That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the podcast, where we tackle this topic and, God willing, many more the right way with God Almighty at the center, biblical Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. On that, military, law enforcement, private security, contracting, hunting, bio bullet points in the show notes. But on today's topic, I grew up poor. Like, really, I don't just say that. Like, I grew up, like, actually poor. Now, we were never homeless, but we might have stayed with other relatives or stuff like that. We may have slept on the floor in one room together as a family. We would have had to, like, at certain points, walk to the center of the nearest town to use a phone because we didn't have one. Kind of poor. I'm not complaining. I never went hungry or anything like that, but poor. And I think some of that sticks with you. Sometimes to my wife's chagrin, or she's like, just spend the money. We have the money. I'm like, oh, but it hurt. Like, I don't grip my teeth because it just seems like it shouldn't cost that much. I try and get over my cheapness, but sometimes it's good, right, to be frugal. I guess there's a difference between frugal and cheap. There's a time to spend the money, and I will sometimes. Like, I'll drop $2,000 on a rifle and be like, oh, yeah, money well spent. That being said, I don't turn my nose up at saving money still. So looking at some stuff and how there's some really good values out there on stuff that you might care about, from tactical to hunting. So first off, let's get into some sources. Gun shows may or may not have some good values. Sometimes stuff there is overpriced, but gun shows may have some good values. Flea markets, yard sales. I'm not big on yard sailing because I don't like to get up early. I am not a morning person, although I often get up very early because I have to for work and working out before work. And I don't voluntarily get up early generally unless it's to go hunting or something really important. But yard sales, my wife and her brother really like those. She doesn't really go to them anymore, but when her brother's around, they like to do that yard sailing thing. Some people like that. Flea markets, if those are still a thing. And eBay, the electronic version of like a flea market or a yard sale, right? eBay, great source of stuff. There's probably some other stuff, but those are some big ones. Let's talk about one, body armor. Body armor can often be found really affordably. Now, body armor has an expiration date. I think whoever the governing body is, I think it's N.R.A, National Institute of Justice. They have all kinds of ratings, and they have all kinds of expiration dates. And the military needs expiration dates on pretty much everything they buy. You can do your own research as to whether or not those are valid or applicable. If you want to stick with like N.R.A like guidelines, go ahead. I'm not faulting you for that, but even sometimes you can find stuff that's even inside its expiration date. You know, you go through a giant police academy and you get several people that wash out, and they generally won't reissue that, or oftentimes they won't reissue that body armor. They'll just sell it, and it'll end up on the surplus market. So body armor, that can be quite expensive, right? If you're okay with used body armor like plates or Kevlar panels, not making your own body armor as in like, you know, gluing newspaper and ceramic plates together, whatever people do, but like just buying Kevlar and making your own body armor that way. There can be some really good values found out there, whether it's at like a gun show or eBay. So body armor, that's a really good one, a way to save some good money. Especially if you're not going to wear it all the time. Like me, my primary breadwinning job, private security contractor. I wear jungle boots, war belt, body armor, day after day after day, hour after hour after hour. So I want some good, well-fitting, really nice stuff. If you use body armor to just, you know, fire extinguisher in case of emergency, you don't wear it day after day, you know, for you know, who knows how many hours of your life, then that's less important. So save some money there. Another one, let's talk about guns. You guys probably want to hear about guns, right? there are some good values out there, some undervalued, underappreciated stuff. I've talked about whole episodes on that, so I won't go over all that again. But one thing I will mention is, back in the day when you could just walk into your general purpose hardware store and buy guns, some places you live you can still do that. That's a pretty good indicator that you live in a good place. But a lot of the older hardware stores had their own line of guns. So like Winchester or Sears, Western Auto, and a lot of times those were very, very similar with a few minor changes. Maybe they didn't give like the checkering, or they didn't give like, instead of a walnut stock, they might have a birch stock or something like that. But a lot of times they were the main, companies that made firearms, making them for Sears, for Western Auto, for whoever else, right? If you want something hardcore to hunt with, or you just want the experience of shooting it, and let's say you wanted like a Winchester 94, well, a pre-64 Winchester Model 94 could command some really good money. You might be able to find one that's basically the same gun, made that's branded Sears or something else, that's quite a bit cheaper. And if you just wanted to shoot with it, you're not a collector, you're looking for the first deer rifle for a kid or something like that, and you don't care so much about being a collector, you just want a good hard use gun, you might look at something like that, a J.C. Higgins, a Sears, a Western Auto type gun. How about another one? Because guns generally hold their value really well. If you do decent on a gun, you can often have it go up in value. So something that often goes down in value, a couple of things. One big one is archery. If you're into archery, if you're into that and you want to get into it and save some money, firearms have kind of hit a plateau, right? There's not been a ton of firearms innovation in the past 50 years. However, bows, every year they're like, this one's 5 feet per second faster. It goes from, 312 feet per second to 320 feet per second. What is that? That's 8 feet per second faster, right? I'm just talking off the cuff here, but you get the idea. And, people will sell their 2-3-year-old bow and get the newest, latest, and greatest bow. Well, if you don't really care, you have to know your draw length. You have to know that it's going to fit you. But you could go, find a really good couple-year-old PSE or Hoyt or Matthews bow at a local pro shop or eBay or something, and just save a lot of money. I would go to one of those shops first if you're brand new to archery and get yourself fitted. See what, and my advice is don't go over on the draw. You're going to have plenty of power in a modern compound bow. Make sure it's enough to be legal, but don't be like, it's my first bow, I'm going to try and draw a 75-pound bow. Get moderate. You can always get a heavier one later. But anyway, bows. You can save a lot of money on archery stuff, especially on bows. Spend your money on brand new good arrows and get a 5-year-old bow. 5 years old, oh no. You can save a lot of money that way. Because every year the companies come out with their latest and greatest, which is marginally better than the year before. So save some money that way. Also, binoculars. Binoculars or just glass. Binoculars, rifle scopes. Some of I'm talking the way older stuff, yeah, we have gotten better. But I'm talking about looking for stuff 10 years old, 5 years old. You can sometimes save a lot of money on like a good pair of binos. Not getting so old that they're like collectible, but like a few-year-old Steiner binoculars, a few-year-old Nikon binoculars. You can often save a lot of money. Who cares if they're a little dinged up on the outside, as long as the lenses and stuff aren't scratched and they work properly. Buy them from somebody with a good rating or something. But man, a used pair of binos, you can save a lot of money. And if you're like me, when you use them hard, you're gonna beat them up anyway. Hopefully, you don't scratch the lenses, but you can really beat those things up anyway. Save some money. Get a good pair of binoculars and save some money on them. Same thing with a good rifle scope. Now, we have made some decent advances in rifle scopes in the past 20 years. But again, 5-10-year-old optics, you can find some really good values. And some really good values would be something like some companies that parted them out and got like good Japanese glass. There's probably other companies, but like an old pair of Bushnell, or an old Bushnell scope that was made in Japan. Those can be remarkably good and clear and fantastic. And because they're Bushnell, which is kind of a budget brand, which are now I think made in China, that's some really high quality glass for really, really cheap money. So if you're looking to save money, you might look there. Also, a lot of newer scripts are just way fat and obese and like 3 to 12s or whatever. Who knows why you need a 12 power optic. But if you want a more practical scope, a lot of times you can get a few-year-old one that's cheap and affordable and really good and rugged. So do your research on that. But like, Japan is known for making really good glass. Japan, the Philippines, things like that. You might be able to find some really good optics that are very affordable on there. You might find some junk on there too, but you could find some really good deals at a gun show, or sometimes like gun stores will take the optics off and they'll sell them separate, and you can find some really good deals that way. One optic I will mention are binoculars, N.R.A. They're no longer in production, I don't believe, but Zen, space R-A-Y, N.R.A. These were always a good value, but they're a really good value now. I don't think many people know about them. And what started this episode is I was reading a book and they mentioned them, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember those were good glass. And I went and bought a pair on eBay for crazy good money. N.R.A. were kind of big in the bird watching world. Well, if you think about what's important to bird watchers, really good high clarity, high contrast, colors, those are also really important to you if you're hunting, if you're glassing, if you're doing tactical stuff. Right, it doesn't have to say tactical and doesn't have to be multicam on your binos to be good binos, right? So those can be, if you find a pair of N.R.As, those are really nice. Also, varying qualities, but if you look at, some of the department store brands that may have been made by other companies, do your research on that, but that were made by really good companies, but because they've got that, they don't have like the main brand name on there, kind of like the old school Sears guns, they may be a really good value. Maybe. They could just be cheap junk. But do your research, right? A pair of Cabela's binos or a pair of Bass Pro Shop binos or Gander Mountain. Remember when I think Gander Mountain's out of business now. I live out west. That was more of an East Coast thing, I think. But, a good pair of glass that's branded that could be made by some higher end company. You can really save some money there if you want to do that. Some other ones I'm going to mention, I'm going to give with a caveat. If you already know what you're about, if you already know what you like you're like, I like Danner Mountain 600s in a size 9, right? And you beat your stuff up. Well, you can often go on eBay and find like somebody that thought they went to REI and spent hundreds of dollars on a pair of boots, and they thought they were going to get into hiking, and they hiked once and they sold them the next year, and they're like brand new and they're half the price. I would not buy boots or something like that online or somewhere you can't try them on unless you know not just what size you are, because boots can vary wildly in size and foot shape, but if you know, like I'm right now wearing the Vietnam style jungle boots. I know like a good Vietnam style jungle boot in a size 9 fits me pretty well, especially when I break them in. If you find a good deal on those at a gun store, at a flea market, a gun show, oftentimes will have a bunch of surplus stuff. A good pair of jungle boot size 9 for me, I'm going to beat them up. Why not? Why not save some money on an older pair? So the boots would be an example of that, and packs. Now, if you just want a pack because you want a pack to feel cool, then get one. But if you don't know what you want, get a pack that you know the features that you like. But once you have that, if you've worn out a pack and you can find a good used one, like I love an Everly Stock Gun Runner pack. I love that pack. If I can find one used and save half the price on an Everly Stock Gun Runner, they're not super expensive to begin with, but like, why not? Like I know that I like that pack. I know that it fits me, or I know, just say that, you're a Mystery Ranch guy. And, Mystery Ranch packs are expensive. If you can find a good used one that's, 80% still good because somebody, again, thought they were going to get into hiking and didn't, or thought they wanted to be a hardcore elk hunter and never got into it, and you can save some money and the pack fits you, then that can be a really, really good deal. You might find those pretty easily at like yard sales or something like that. Again, somebody thought they were going to get into it and they just didn't. So packs, assuming they'll fit you, assuming you have hiked enough to know what fits you. If you just put it on and it feels good, feeling good when you just wear it around the store is one thing. if it feels good 8 hours into a hike up a mountain, that's another thing. So again, assuming you know what kind of pack you like or what features you like in a pack. Like I like a really thick waist pad because I got a pretty skinny small waist, so I like a thick padded waist pad. That's important to me. I don't like most of my weight on my shoulders. I like it on my waist and my hips. I know that about me, right? So I could probably deduce whether a pack's going to work well for me or not. But if you don't have that knowledge, probably go to like a pro shop your first time and spend the good money on a good first pack. But then after that, when you wear out your first or second pack and you're looking for a replacement, getting a used one could really be a good value. Another thing you might be able to find on tactical stuff is web gear, like old Black Hawk GWAT type stuff. Global War on Terrorism surplus stuff, right? Duty belts, Safariland holsters, stuff that was really expensive to begin with, but it's a little beat up, it's a little dirty. Right? You can save some good money on that stuff. If it's a common platform, Glock, Beretta 92, SIGs, you can usually find some really good value on that web gear. So keep an eye out for that. Another thing, the older camo, right? Camo has become like a fashion statement. And it's like the marketing wars. It's like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi now. Are you Team Realtree or Team Mossy Oak? Are you Sitka guy or a First Light guy? It's camo, dude. Chill. Plaid is good camo. So if you're just looking for good quality hunting gear and you don't care about being the latest and greatest Gucci camo that's, the deer are going to stop and do a double take and just stare at you and let you shoot them while you do your little turn on the catwalk because you have the latest and greatest camo. If you don't actually think that that's a thing and don't care about that, you might be able to find some older camo patterns that are just really good values. Things that were the Gucci camouflage of a few years ago. Neutral Gear, Cryptex, older military camo stuff, British DPM or Alpenflage. Not so old that it's highly collectible, and some of that stuff is becoming hot again because it's vintage or whatever. But the stuff that's not hot, that's still a good camo pattern. You can get some really good values if you just want a good, hunting jacket, and you know that you want this material or that material of hunting jacket. You want something really quiet, like a good fleece if you're a stalker, still hunter, like I like to do. Who cares what camouflage pattern it is, as long as it's not snow camo, and you're in the deep dark timber. But as long as it's an acceptable camo pattern, then why not? Why not save a bunch of money on that? Another one would be multi-tools. If you're actually going to use them, if you want them and collect them and you want a pristine, brand new Leatherman, by all means, go ahead. But if you want to save some money and you know what tools you're looking for, you can save some money going to places like eBay and finding multi-tools. Right, if you're actually going to use it and use it hard, who cares if it's a little beat up? Aren't you going to beat it up using it? So why not save, a big chunk of money on a Leatherman or a Gerber multi-tool? Especially if you want several. I want one in every vehicle, right? So I got a multi-tool in this vehicle, I got a multi-tool in my wife's vehicle, etc. Instead of just getting a cheap one, which you can do, off-brands, they might work fine, why not get an older Gerber, an older Leatherman with the tools that you want on it? That's a little beat up. Again, you're probably going to beat it up anyway if you use it hard. So why not save some money there? Now, getting into the tactical tip of the day, this is also something you can buy, use, and save money on, but also will help you find good values. Whatever you're into, look at old magazines or catalogs of that thing, that are, 5-10 years old. If you're into hunting, look at an old hunting magazine, buy a bunch of them, a lot of them, 10 or so, and then look through there and see what was the latest and greatest hot thing, that you might be needing today that the hunting community has kind of moved on from. And look for deals on that thing. Again, neutral gear, camo. That was a big thing when I was growing up. You might be able to get on eBay and find some really good gear that's neutral gear, that nobody's looking for that camo pattern. Or let's say you're into fishing. Maybe there was some really good polarized glasses brand that came out. Somebody was pushing their brand a couple of years ago and it never caught on. And they're not popular today. Maybe you can find a really good deal on some good polarized glasses. Or, whatever the case is, right? You apply to you. You're into the tactical stuff. Well, get a tactical magazine from 5-10 years ago. And what's, something somebody was really pushing at SHOT Show that just didn't catch on. Now you can get for a song and a dance that you would actually work well for you. So that's your tactical tip of the day. Your tactical verse of the day. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Now my comments on this verse. Don't love money. Money is a resource. It's used to exchange for things that you actually find useful. And anything more than that, it could become an idol. So beware of that. Use it. Leverage it. Do whatever you need to do with it. But don't put it above God. Certainly don't put it above your fellow man. It's a resource. It doesn't say money is evil. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. With that, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.